So this is from a different angle. Prince Harry arriving at court. It's the first time in 125 years that a royal's appeared.
Election is because of something called Part 36. Now that means if I were suing you and you made me an offer without any admission of wrongdoing, and I didn't accept that offer because I wanted my day in court and I wanted the admission of wrongdoing, possibly even more than I wanted the money. If we then went to court, and I'm taking the risk, of course, of losing, but if I then won and the court decided to award less money in damages than you had offered me a year or 2 years ago, then I could be liable for your costs, which would run well into the millions of pounds. So I would end up winning a case against you, but having to sell my house and probably go bankrupt in order to hand over all of my money to the newspaper company that had, brackets, allegedly closed brackets, stolen my information in the first place.
That's one of the best explanations I've heard. It can happen with or without admissions. So the Mirror Group does tend to make admissions because there was a trial where it was found that it was widespread at all three titles during the period 1999 to 2006. So they generally make some admissions. If they make an offer more than you're advised and your insurers are advised that you can beat, then not only do you have to pay the other side's costs, but the insurers pull out and you're faced with the problem of paying your own side's costs. And because those costs, as you said, are much more than the damages the court awards or even that you've been offered, you'll be out of pocket, and you have to be fabulously rich in order to have your day in court. It's one of the quirks. There's a reason for it. Obviously, you can't have people who want their day in court and refuse to settle even when they're getting everything they want. But it does mean that it's taken people who are prepared, as Prince Harry has said he is, to even take a financial loss. I don't think that necessarily applies in this case because he may not have had an offer because Mirror Group were happy to go to trial.
Right.
But where they're not happy to go to trial, it's really hard without taking a big financial risk. And that's why people who settle have a statement in open court and you hear them speak on the steps of court like Sienna Miller did and I did when I brought my hacking claim, and try and explain that's why they've settled. They've not taken the money and run. They've taken the money despite a keen interest in getting the court to decide what happened.
Wow. Yeah, it's a very huge risk, a very, very huge risk Harry's taking here. And I think his wife is standing by him. And can you imagine?
And in terms of how Prince Harry's done in court today, Laura, you've been in court and listened to some of the evidence. How do you think he's got on?
There was always a worry with Harry coming here in person that once he took to the witness stand, his lawyers, his legal team were not going to be able to advise him anymore. They haven't been able to coach him and tell him what to say, but they've been able to advise him. But as soon as he's under oath, that's it. He is on his own in that busy, crowded courtroom. And there was a fear that the barristers for Mirror Group newspapers would try and rattle, they'd try and roil him, prod and poke him until he started taking himself down roads that they wouldn't want him going down, saying things that they didn't want him saying. But it seems so far the reason Harry's team are happy is because he's remained calm. I think he's remained with more confidence perhaps as the proceedings have continued, and he certainly has kept his cool, and that was the fear there, that he wouldn't keep his cool, he'd lose his rag, if you like.
And just a recap for any viewers just joining us, we're showing you pictures from outside the High Court in central London, where Prince Harry has been giving evidence today in his High Court case against Mirror Group newspapers, suing them for obtaining information illegally about him in order to write articles in a period spanning more than 2 decades and dating back to 1996 when he was just 11 years old. Well, Prince Harry's evidence has concluded for today, but it's not over yet. He will continue tomorrow, but his evidence began at 10:30 this morning. It's concluded around 4:30 this afternoon. He's no doubt taking a break before he comes out of the High Court to leave for the day, and certainly someone who's just left the High Court has joked that he's already left out a back door, but we don't believe that to be the case given the police presence outside. So we will bring you that departure of Prince Harry potentially imminently, but certainly as soon as we get it. And for now, I'm discussing today's events with our royal correspondent, Laura Bundock, who's been following proceedings in court. And just bring viewers up to date, Laura, with the significance.
Let's listen. There's more, but let's listen to this. 1 minute and 38 seconds. I might stop in between.
Completely unwise. I think when he says that this is going to be his life's work, it's even worse, because I think it's tragic. I think it's also arrogant, so it's a terrible mixture together. He won't be able to answer all the questions and the attacks he's going to get from these top lawyers. He's had nice, soft interviews with people who don't want to upset him in case he walks out or tells them to go. So he hasn't got the experience. It's also extremely negative. His whole life now seems to be negative, going right back into the past. His mother's death, he's going to blame them for that.
Okay, for one thing, like this person, the caption said, she doesn't know anything about Harry. There's Harry, who was a young boy, observing. I mean, I think the palace is shocked to see that kind of bravery in Harry, because he always stay quiet. But now that he has a family to defend, he's gonna defend it. Okay, in a way to undermine Harry's kind of bravery, what's gonna take place in court. I think, I don't know, in a way, let them undermine him. Fine. But they're gonna be surprised to see how Harry responds to them, because he's been holding all of this all his life. And then the training that Harry has, talking to when being interviewed, to be on top of your game, to respond, to do all of things. Because many times when you look back at interviews when he was a young man, he knows how to refrain himself and allowed his brother, because at that time he knows his brother needs to be heard. Okay, he's the heir to the throne. He knows his position. He allowed his brother to say his nonsense. All right, many times you see his face expression is like this kind of thing. So Harry have been in training in terms of what to say and how to say things. So we're gonna see what happened here when he goes to court. All right, so let's continue. And to undermine his bravery and all of that, I guess that's the tactic that the UK tabloid is gonna have. Let them hold that, fine, but they're gonna be surprised.
Taking into account that she didn't have a safety belt on, or that the driver was drunk, you know, it's just one way of thinking. Also about
okay, the driver with the seat belt, the drunk and all of that. I've come to, in my own conclusion, this is the BS they put out there. Okay, for a driver who knows who he was gonna drive that night to be drunk, all right, please, just please. And we know how the UK they love to erase history. Okay, create their own thing. All right, so they're all a baggage for God.
Chelsea Davy, his girlfriend before her, he said they ruined that relationship. I mean, that's 13 years ago.
But if they broke the law and hacked his phone, he's not wrong to be angry or upset about that. The question is, should he be public about it?
No, that he shouldn't be public about it. He can get as angry as he likes, but it's not going to help him, particularly if...
Yeah, it will help him. People will know the truth. Okay, if you're keeping things in secret, look at what happened to the bullying. You guys, with your mouthpiece, you went to the world, okay, saying how Meghan was a bully, this and that. But now, we still don't know how the outcome came. Okay, with the investigation, decided to keep it quiet. Okay, when things isn't benefit to you and to the royal family, you stand on the rooftop to let the world know. But Harry needs to tell his story, because if he leave it up to you guys to write his story, which will be his history, okay, we will not hear the truth. Let people know the truth, because the thing that they're doing to him, they're doing it to so many other people. So people need to hear all of that. I mean, this lady is a freaking baggage for God, for sure.
He has mental health issues. He needs to be kind to himself. He needs to be positive.
Well, he is treating his mental health by doing this. If he doesn't do that, What do you think? It's gonna haunt him for the rest of his life. Why didn't he act and do what was right for the people who's causing him pain? So he is solving his mental well-being, because there's so much punches. Can you imagine you standing there, people hold your hand, and then they just keep on punching you? How will you feel about that? This is exactly what the royal family was doing to Harry. They held him back and they allowed the papers to punch him. Okay, punch him in the sense of writing all sort of things. The same way they did to Meghan. They tried to hold Meghan back from not suing them for writing nonsense. Okay, where it started to affect Meghan mentally. What did Meghan do to release her mental anguish? She had to sue them. Sue them by getting out of remove herself from the palace nonsense. Okay, hire her own lawyer to sue the paper. Okay, that releases that mental anguish that she was going through, and Harry's doing the same thing. So you need to take a cue, lady. Oh my God, how would you feel if that was happening to you? Huh? People talking negative, untruthful things about you non-stop, and you expect them to shut their mouth and don't do anything about it. And when everything that they were doing to him were being published worldwide, and then you expect him to stay quiet? My goodness, these people are freaking evil. When I say evil originated in the UK, it is showing me every day that I was right. This is pure freaking mental diablo, like the Spanish people usually say. Devils. My goodness. Let's continue. Let me rewind it back a little bit so you guys I stop.
You're public about it.
No, that he shouldn't be public about it. He can get as angry as he likes, but it's not going to help him, particularly if he has mental health issues. He needs to be kind to himself. He needs to be positive. He needs to look to the future. He's got a wife he still absolutely adores. He's got 2 children, a beautiful home with 16 bathrooms and a swimming pool and a tennis court and all that. It won't ever wipe it out.
Okay, he's doing that for his children, so this nonsense don't pass on. Okay, once he sue their butt, okay, they will leave him alone, because he's been saying it for years. Before Meghan came into the picture, before he had kids, okay, he's been saying it. The privacy, leave him alone. But you guys went way beyond into his private life. And I was just thinking about that 15-minute interview they forced him to have with this woman who's talking all this nonsense. Okay, he thought it was a small little interview, but you went on and write a freaking book about him, like you know him personally, his life stories and stuff like that. So he needs to do what's right.
But it'll enable him to feel positive and have confidence in himself, instead of which he's just a moaning, groaning individual.
Tom, I'm not sure that having...
Oh. All right, so he's doing the right thing for himself.
Welcome back to the High Court, where Prince Harry's cross-examination continues. He is still in the witness box. He's been in the witness box for more than 4 hours today, being cross-examined by the Mirror Group newspaper's barrister. In this case, where Prince Harry is suing the Mirror Group newspapers for obtaining information illegally, he's alleging, in order to write articles about him between the period of 1996 and 2010. Now, it's very detailed indeed, and we've had an explosive witness statement from Prince Harry today. Let's just bring in our royal correspondent, Laura Bundock, and media lawyer, Jonathan Code, who've been poring over the witness statement and following events in court. Thanks very much for standing by. Jonathan, you've been in court in the last half an hour, and you've been speaking to some of your legal sources in there. What have you been hearing?
Well, I've got some good intel from Team Harry. And the 3 points that they made to me is, as far as they're concerned, they think the cross-examination is going really well, which is my impression too. The second point they make is that all this about articles is to some extent irrelevant, because this is an unlawful information gathering claim. So whether it gets into a particular article or not is not the be-all and end-all of the claim. The third thing they said is that the Mirror Group is throwing tons of money at this. Apparently they've got an enormous back team of lawyers, much bigger than Prince Harry's side, and extensive tech backup, which Prince Harry's side doesn't have. So what that tells you is they're really worried about the possible outcome of this case.
That's interesting. So you determine that by, reaching deeply into their pockets to fund this case, they're clearly concerned about it.
Absolutely.
But interestingly, Jonathan, could that make the difference? Could the team throwing the most money at lawyers essentially come out better?
Well, I very much hope not. I mean, in litigation, resources does make an impact. But if I can, I want to tell you at the nearest, I think, that we've got to a smoking gun point. So just before I came out, the KC for the Mirror was talking about a Mirror article which dealt with Harry's holiday in Mozambique with Chelsea Davy. Now, in a moment,
And Jonathan Code, who is still with us as well, media lawyer, we're relying very much on your guidance today in terms of how things have gone legally, but certainly the flavour of what we've had from Prince Harry today is someone who feels that their life has been tormented by press intrusion. He is trying to do something about that, but the stakes are high for Prince Harry.
they are, but he clearly thinks it is a battle worth fighting. And as someone who's also had their fights with the tabloids on behalf of clients, I think he's absolutely right that it is a battle worth fighting.
Whether you think it's right is one thing. I guess the big question is, can he succeed?
Well, on the basis of today, my best guess is that he will succeed because he only needs to establish one instance of unlawful information gathering to win this case.
Okay, and let's bring our listeners and viewers up to speed in terms of the civil nature of this hearing. It's not like a criminal court. There won't be a guilty or a not guilty verdict. What is the best that Prince Harry could hope for in terms of an outcome here, and potentially, you know, what could be an unfavourable outcome for him?
Well, his best outcome is that he wins. As I say, he's got 33 opportunities to win. The Mirror has to knock down all 33. If they knock down 32, 31, then they lose. So his best outcome is that a judge finds that the Mirror Group newspapers have engaged in unlawful information gathering against a senior royal member of the royal family. And that will be a stupendous win.
And Jonathan, unlike a criminal court, there is no jury here. The ruling comes down to one person.
It does, and the judge has a very hard task. And I imagine he'll be sifting the evidence all the way through to September. But, you know, he took this on, he knew what he was taking on, and I imagine that he will provide a very detailed and thought-out judgment. One tiny delightful extra piece of information. I spoke to the security guy who checked me out, and I said, "Well, did you check Prince?"
Of phone hacking. Blamed a family member, blamed a sister for a really intimate story getting into the newspapers because her sister was the only person that she'd told. And it never crossed her mind that exchanges on voicemail between her and her sister had been listened to by investigators working for newspapers or by newspaper journalists. Just have a think about that for a minute. Your sister is the only person that knows you are, let's say, pregnant. Right? The only person you've told is your sister. And it turns up in a newspaper the next day. So what do you do? Who do you blame? She's the only person you've told. So you check. I mean, did you tell anyone? No, I promise, I swear, of course I didn't tell anyone. You must have told someone. How's it got into the paper? Think about the damage that could do to a relationship. And now, particularly if you're someone who spends a lot of time on social media attacking Prince Harry and his wife, now just think about the possibility, or the allegation, not even the fact, just the possibility that he has spent his entire life at constant risk of that sort of betrayal of trust, or perceived betrayal of trust, his entire life. That's what this case is about. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Against the press, to pursue this mission against the press. He said it was a suicide mission, and Charles always has tried to keep the tabloids on side. Actually, rather to my own annoyance and bemusement. When I was working for the BBC, you know, a very senior royal correspondent at the BBC, I was excluded from parties and events. I remember one big party at Buckingham Palace. I wasn't invited as the royal correspondent. Piers Morgan was as the editor of the Mirror. David Yellen was as the editor of the Sun. And I used to say to them, why? And why do you plant stories? And they did plant is a strong word. Give stories to the tabloids first. Why don't you come to me and I'll broadcast and they can follow me? But that was never the way Paris worked. They loved to pursue this mission against the press.